here we have some tricky problems involving something called consecutive integers. And all that means is numbers that come right after each other, like 1, 2, 3, or 7, 8, 9, or 101, 102, 103. Those are consecutive integers because they're right next to each other. They'd be right next to each other on the number line. This first one says, find 3 consecutive integers such that twice the sum of the first 2 is 2 less than 3 times the third. And when I read a sentence like that, I immediately get confused. So it's really important to break this down into smaller pieces. And I'm going to show you how to do that. First of all, we're dealing with 3 consecutive integers, and we don't know what they are. So let's call the first one x. So that's our first consecutive integer. Since they're right next to each other, the second consecutive integer we can call x plus 1. So if x was 1, this would be 2, and then our third consecutive integer is going to be x plus 2. So when you're dealing with consecutive integers, that's the first trick to know. So those are our consecutive integers. Now let's see if we can parse this sentence. It says, twice the sum of the first 2 is 2 less than 3 times the third. What I usually do when I see something like that is try to find the word is. That's almost always the equal sign. And there are going to be things on the left of the equal sign, things on the right of the equal sign. So let's just take the half that's on the left of the equal sign. Twice the sum of the first 2. Well, what are the first 2? That means the first 2 consecutive integers, so this one and this one. The sum of those first 2 just means add those together. So we would write that as x plus 1. And then backing up even further, it says twice. So twice the sum of the first 2. So we add them together and then we multiply by 2. So this is twice the sum of the first 2 consecutive integers. Then we have our is, that's our equal sign. And then we have this, 2 less than 3 times the third. Well, what's the third? That's the third consecutive integer, so that's x plus 2. 3 times that, we would multiply that whole quantity by 3. And then 2 less than that, well, we'd just subtract 2 to get 2 less than that. That's the hardest part of this work, is setting up the equation in the first place. After this, it's just crunching through some algebra. We can combine like terms here. I've got x plus x, that's 2x, plus 1, that's multiplied by 2. And then we can distribute our 2. 2 times 2x is 4x. 2 times 1 is 2. We can distribute the 3. 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 2 is 6. And then we have a minus 2. So 6 minus 2 is 4. I can rewrite all of this as 4x plus 2 equals 3x plus 4. And now I have x's on both sides of the equation, so I want to get the x just on one side. I think I'm going to do that by subtracting 3x from both sides. That'll take care of the x's on the right. 4x minus 3x is x. I'm going to have my plus 2. This goes away, so I just have 4. And all I have to do to get x now is subtract 2, so I get x equals 2. And now let's look up at our answer choices here. Do we have one where x is 2? Well, we have this 2, 4, 5, and this 2, 3, 4. It has to be D because we're dealing with consecutive integers. So if this is 2, this is 2 plus 1, which is 3. This is 2 plus 2, which is 4. So it's 2, 3, 4. And in fact, now that I look back, I see that these aren't consecutive integers. These aren't. And neither are these. So I probably could have skipped all that work if I had just looked at the answer choices ahead of time. Oh well. Let's look at the next one. So this says find 4 consecutive integers. So that's going to be a little bit more work, but I think we're ready for it. And again, we'll set up our 4 consecutive integers. So our first one is going to be x. Our second one is going to be x plus 1. Our third is going to be x plus 2. And our fourth, I'm sure you've guessed it, is going to be x plus 3. So those are 4 consecutive integers. Now, Let's find the is in this sentence. 5 times the sum of the first and the fourth is 24 less, oh, there it is 24 less than 9 times the third. So there's our equal sign. Let's work on the left side of the equal sign. 5 times the sum of the first and the fourth. Well, the first and the fourth, that's this and this. The sum of those is just adding those two together, so x plus 3. And it's 5 times the sum of those. So we'll put those in parentheses and multiply it by 5. Okay, I think that's everything on the left side, so we can put our equal sign. And this says 24 less than 9 times the third. The third is this guy, and we're doing 9 times the third. So it's x plus 2 times 9. And then it's 24 less than that, so we're going to subtract 24. So the hard work is done here. We have our equation. Now we just need to crunch the numbers. So we'll combine like terms here. X plus x is 2x, so we're going to get 5 times 2x plus 3 equals 9 times x plus 2 minus 24. Then we'll distribute the 5. So 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 3 is 15. And we'll distribute the 9. 9 times x, 9x. 9 times 2 is 18. And then we have our minus 24. So 18 minus 24, I think that's a negative 6. So this is 9x minus 6. 10x plus 15. All right, I'm in that situation where I have x's on both sides of the equation. So let's see, subtracting 9x would get rid of it there. 10x minus 9x is just 1x. Then we have plus 15 equals negative 6. And finally, to solve for x, I need to just subtract 15 from both sides. And I'm going to get x equals negative 21. And time to look back at the answer choices. Here we have one of them with a negative 21. And this might seem confusing at first, but these are negative numbers. So if x is negative 21, x plus 1 is going to be negative 20, x plus 2 is going to be negative 19, and so on. So our correct answer there is A. That's a little bit of work with consecutive integer problems.